In this video I'm going to talk about maintenance of the SSG10 A1 and also the A2. Process is entirely the same, so no matter what I do, you can apply it to both rifles. I will split this video into two parts. One is inner barrel cleaning and one is cylinder and trigger unit cleaning. For inner barrel cleaning, we don't need to take the rifle apart, so let's start with this one. First of all, how often should you actually clean your inner barrel? Many people have many different opinions about this. In my opinion, you should do it after every around 500 shots, so that's about 1 to 2 airsoft games if you shoot, the average amount of BBs. What does it actually do for you? It will make your shots more accurate because there's less dirt in the barrel, less BB residues, and this is why it's a good idea. Before you clean the barrel, you first put your adjustment here to the very front, because then your hopper is basically all the way turned off, and this will be much better for the hopper rubber when you clean it. Otherwise, you can misplace the hopper rubber, and that's not a good thing. What you will need now is a barrel cleaning rod that's included with the gun. What you also need is a NOVRITSCH maintenance kit, which includes a couple things that are really handy, not just for barrel cleaning, but for the entire maintenance. Here we have rubbing alcohol. It's very handy for barrel cleaning because it evaporates and it doesn't leave any residues. It's also not aggressive to the hopper rubber, so that's the way to go. And then we also have those cellulose wipes, and they're also really nice because they don't leave any little fabric things or anything like that in the barrel, because it sticks really well together. First thing again, turn the hop up to 0, and now you just rip off pieces like this. You rip them about a finger wide, and then you rip them also in the middle. Put them through this little loop here on your barrel cleaning rod, pull it all the way through, and then you just dip it in rubbing alcohol. If it drips, just turn it a little bit so you get rid of the excess. And now you can push it down your inner barrel. You have to take care that this little tissue here does not touch the back here, this bigger back piece, because then you can squeeze the tissue between this back piece and the inner barrel. And if you drive this all the way through the hopper rubber, then you can actually damage it. So when you fold it down, you will see that it's so short that it's not gonna touch this piece here. So you just push it in, and now you just keep turning, and you push it all the way down. You push it until you feel some resistance, and then you can actually pull back the bolt and go a little bit further, not much. I'm talking 5 millimeters, so that's like half a finger. Just go this little bit more inside, turn again, and that's it. You shouldn't go any further than this, because otherwise you can lose the tissue in the receiver, and then you have to take the gun apart. So there we go. And as you can see, that's a dirty barrel right there. This is why we're cleaning it. You basically repeat this process now over and over until there is no dirt left anymore. So you take any tissue, put it through, and now you don't have to dip it in rubbing alcohol anymore, because the barrel is already full of rubbing alcohol. And now we just want to wipe it dry and also want to take out the rest of the dirt. You can close your cylinder again. You can actually even take the shot. Make sure that there's no BBs inside. And now you just repeat this cleaning process until the entire rifle is dry and until the tissues don't come out dirty anymore. That's still dirty, so we just repeat this. So here that's pretty clean already. This is clean enough because once you shoot the first few BBs, it's gonna get slightly dirty anyways. So it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be like super white, just like you push it in. This is easily enough, clean enough. So again, the inner barrel should be cleaned every 1 to 2 games, so around every 500 shots. And now I'm gonna move on to cylinder cleaning and cylinder lubing and also trigger box. And therefore we have to take apart the rifle. Now the process that I'm going to show you now, I recommend you to do it after every 5,000 BBs. So that's, if you play quite a lot, that's about half a year. So don't overdo this. If you disassemble your gun too often and you maintain it and you put it together, and you do this like 1,000 times, the gun will break faster than if you don't do it. So overdoing maintenance is bad, and not doing it enough is also bad. So you have to find a good balance. You can count the BB bottles that you're shooting or just the BB bags. And if you're at around 5,000, then I recommend you to do the following. First of all, you take a hex key and you unscrew those 3 screws here. This is the same on the A1 and on the A2. Don't be lazy, also take out this one here on the A1. It's a Phillips on the A1. And I know you can also take it out without doing it, but you might eventually break it, so please take those 3 out. And then you take your thumb, you press inside here on the auto barrel, and then you pull with your fingers on the stock. So now the entire unit comes off. Put it aside. And now we get to the heart of the gun. What you want to do now is take a Phillips screwdriver and you take out this little screw here. Now this allows you to unscrew the auto barrel. So you do that as well. Just turn it counterclockwise and pull off the auto barrel. We're not gonna work on this, we're just gonna work on this unit right here. What you want to do now is accessing the cylinder, and you do this by using needle nose pliers or a Leatherman, or you can also insert an Allen key here and then force it against the nozzle in order to open it. Just turn it counterclockwise, and now you can use your hand. Be careful, the spring has some force on the cylinder head, so it's gonna pop out, just like that. And now we are inside the cylinder. You take out all the parts. This rifle is a fairly new rifle, so the parts are very clean, but I'm still gonna show you what to do with an old gun. You take one of those tissues again and you wipe all the parts here dry. All the parts should be completely dry, so take them, take everything off, all the oil, all the dirt. In your case, if this shot 5,000 shots, you know, this one is already slightly dirty, but yours will be, you know, this will be black basically. You do the same with the piston, you know, just wipe everything off, make it nice and dry. You can also push it in here, you know, clean it all out. You can also use a brand new tissue, you know, just wrap it like this, push it down the piston. And just clean it all out. Not very dirty on this one, but again, yours will probably be black now. Okay, same goes for the spring. You know, just wipe it off. And what we want to do here is really, you know, get the dirt off the parts and then we relube them again. Same goes for the cylinder. By the way, if you couldn't take out the spring guide, you have to pull the cylinder all the way back and you have to surpass the friction here of the pistons here, and then it's gonna fall out. Okay. Next, you want to wrap the tissue. You know, you can actually wrap it into the coils, and you just wrap it around that it holds to it. And now you can use this self-made tool basically and push it down the cylinder. You just do this a couple times, and you also make the cylinder completely dry. Repeat this a couple times until it comes out like this, you know, quite white, not a lot of dirt on it. You probably have to do this 5 or 6 times, you know, repeat this over and over until it comes out like this. Now we want to do the cylinder outside, because also, you know, the more dirt is on there, the less pleasant the bolt pull will be. So just clean all of this here and here, as much surface as you can access without taking it apart. And there we go. Same goes here for the trigger box. I recommend you to not take off this trigger box, because if you do this too often on those threads, they might strip and you want to avoid this at all costs. So if it's not necessary, never take off the trigger box. What you can do is just pull back the bolt all the way, and then you will see that your pistons here comes out. You can clean the surface where all the friction is happening, right here. And then you can put it back in. And now you can also press the trigger, and here on this surface is the other friction part of the trigger, and you can also clean it off. Okay, now all the parts are clean, trigger is clean, and now we can get right into relubing. Therefore, we have different components. A tissue like this you can reuse for oiling. You know, it's not too dirty. This one can be easily used. If this one would be black, use a new one. So we have different oils for different applications in the NOVRITSCH maintenance kit. For oiling the spring guide, you want the mech oil because you have a metal to metal friction. You basically put this oil onto the tissue, just like that. And you never apply it directly to the part. You always put it first into the tissue, and then you just rub it very gently here onto the spring guide. This is also how you do it on a real firearm. You know, you never just drop lube into the gun. You do it exactly like this. And now you have a very thin layer of oil and your spring guide, and that's exactly what you want. Okay, now you can put the part here. Now you do the same with the spring. You know, again, you have some lube here, put some more mech oil, and you just glide it through this oil layer, and you put a thin layer of oil onto your spring so that it glides nice and smooth inside your piston and on the spring guide. Also here on the ends. And there we go. Now you can slide your spring on your spring guide. And on the piston, you only want to put the mech oil here on the steel base. First of all, for anti-oxidation. I mean, it's already plated, electroplated, but you still want to do it because it doesn't harm. And it will also help you, you know, for a more smoother action. Okay, now this is also covered in oil. Now you put these parts together. And this unit is almost finished now. Next, I want you to use the SSG silicone oil because this is used to lube the entire cylinder unit. If you play at really cold temperatures, I'm talking minus 15 degrees Celsius, then I recommend you to use the thin silicone oil. But otherwise, the SSG one is the better choice. So you just unscrew it. And now you apply very little lube here. You know, don't overdo it. Just put a thin circle here of lube one time around the cylinder. And that's it. You want this right behind the thread, so not inside the thread, otherwise it's just gonna stick in there. What you're doing now is you take the piston and you shove it the wrong way around, and be careful with this, you know, just gently push it in there, not too hard, otherwise the thread is gonna damage the cap. Right like this. And now you push it all the way down, all the way into the cylinder. You can also use the spring. And now it's all the way in, and it spreaded the entire oil through the entire cylinder. Now you can pull again to actually take it out. You can insert your finger and take out the piston again. Okay, here we go. Now the lube is evenly spreaded. Now I can also put a little bit of oil here onto the glide rings. Not too much. You can use the tissue to spread it a little bit. And now you can also apply it here onto the second glide ring. Same goes for the cap itself. Put some oil there. And you just spread it with the tissue, just like that. You want it on the side, not too much in the front, because everything that's in the front will just go straight into your barrel. Now you might be wondering why I applied the oil directly onto the parts, but what I talked about before only applies to the mech oil, not for the silicone oil, because you want a little bit more, a little bit bigger film than on the mech oil. Now I want to return the cylinder back into the receiver, and all the inserts go into the gun. If you have a cut spring, you want the cut end to always rest inside the piston. When you insert spring guide and spring, you want that the spring is on it. Don't, you know, first put the spring guide there and then put the spring and then they misalign. Put them onto each other's and then insert them into the gun. Next comes the piston. And now you want to apply a slight layer of SSG silicone oil here onto the O-ring of the nozzle here of the piston head. You can try to just push it inside with your hand and screw it in, or you can also use a tool. What you have to make sure though is that it's straight, so you shouldn't, you know, force thread it, basically canted, so kind of like this, and then you just try to put it in. Make sure that it's really straight, and then, you know, if it doesn't grab the thread, you can also turn it counterclockwise, and then here now it's grabbed, and you can thread it in. You can also do this with a tool from the very beginning. I'm going to show you this as well. If you don't have the power or not the strength to do it, you can also just do it like that. Here again, make sure that you don't break the thread on your cylinder. Okay, here we go. Put some torque on it, just a little bit so that it doesn't come loose. And now the cylinder unit is done. You don't want to grease your cylinder on the outside because this will just collect dirt, and when you're playing, there's dirt everywhere. It's just going to stick on there and then it will make your action even worse. What you want to do now is you want to lube those parts right here, those friction parts, and therefore you just apply some mech oil onto the tissue again. And now you want to wipe it here onto, you press the trigger, and here on this very tip, you apply the oil. Just like that. You can also squeeze it in there. Just squeeze it in there so you get it on both parts, on both moving parts here, because this is where the friction is happening. Okay, there we go. Your cylinder and trigger unit is re-lubed again. That's really all it takes. This is a quite precise guide, but this is how it's done perfectly. And it can make the difference between a really nice feeling gun and a gun where there's too much lube in there, and then you get it into the inner barrel, or a gun that's just too dry, or it's just the wrong oils on the wrong parts, or in general, oil on parts that's not necessary. For example, people will oil the trigger box here on the outside, and this makes no sense. You only need it on the parts of friction. Okay, there we go. That's it. Now we put the whole rifle together, and we are ready to go then again. So you put the outer barrel here onto the receiver, and before you do that, you also want to make sure that there's a glide ring inside. This glide ring can fall out. Look on the table, it's a small plastic ring. In my case, it didn't fall out. If it fell out, just put it on the cylinder and push it all the way down again, and then put the outer barrel there. If you want to find it, you can just put a flashlight down here. It's again a plastic ring around here. Okay, if it's in place, screw those two parts together, clockwise. So you turn until it stops. So I cannot turn any further, and then you turn it back until it aligns. So you will see a little hole here, and this is where this screw will go again. If you don't see the cylinder, it means that it's not straight yet. You're gonna see the black outer barrel, but if you turn it correctly, then you're gonna get a glance at the cylinder, so you're gonna see silver, and this is when you can put your screw back in. When you put the screw back in, you want some screw glue on there, because otherwise it's gonna come loose. Take your screw glue, put it on there. Here I'm using the screw glue from the NOVRITSCH maintenance kit, but you can also get some other medium strength screw glue. Don't use the hard one, don't use the weak one, use the medium one. Just put it there. Don't tighten this too hard, just use 2 fingers, not that you strip the thread, because the screw glue is gonna make it not come apart anyways. Okay, now you take your rifle stock, just like that. And here it can be a little bit tricky to align everything, but you basically just put it on there. And here you have to take care of multiple things. First of all, these 3 screws have different lengths. The longest one goes into the back, the medium one goes here, and the shortest one goes here. Don't do it in any other way, otherwise you can damage parts in the gun when the long screw presses into the short hole, for example. Okay, now you want to wiggle your trigger a little bit until the trigger box clicks into the trigger guard, because only then you can actually make everything nice and flush and click together. This is again the same on the A1 and the A2. Now you tighten the screws. Not too hard, gently. Here as well. And also the one here in the back. This front screw can influence the feeding capabilities of your rifle, so if you can put the mags inside, make it looser. If your mags are not feeding, you can make it slightly tighter to solve feeding issues. Okay, there we go. This is the maintenance guide for the SSG10. This is everything that's needed. Once again, don't overdo maintenance. For the cylinder, we're talking 5,000 shots before you do this entire process. And for the inner barrel, we're talking 500 shots. For the rest of the gun, really, there's nothing to it. You just take a tissue, you make it, you put some water on it or some dishwashing, soap even, and you just clean the stock and everything. There's not really anything you have to take care of. That was it. Hope it was helpful. And if you have any questions, just contact us through the contact form.